Reports are rife that Dan Marokane is set to be appointed as the new Chief Executive Officer of Eskom. It follows a near year-long search to fill in the vacant position of Chief Executive. So energy expert Hilton Trollip now joins us to discuss this further. Hilton, good afternoon and thanks for your time with us here on the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure. Nice to be with you.
It's arguably one of the toughest jobs to undertake in South Africa, given the urgency of the matter. As Dan Marokane comes to the fore, how much do we know about him, and is he the right person for the job?
So I'm not familiar with the details of Dan's history, but what we do know is that he's an Eskom insider, and he's held senior positions there in charge of their treasury, I think it's. So he's a finance person. And that's definitely one of the areas that is very important for Eskom because it is in financial difficulty. And also the fact that he's an insider, there are pluses for that and minuses. The pluses are Dan comes to this job, if he does, we haven't had 100% confirmation yet, with a knowledge of how complicated the internal workings of this very large organization that is involved in many kinds of business. And is involved in. So I was interviewed, I remember when Andre de Ruyter was appointed, and what I had to say then was the kind of person that we need, that any corporation this size needs, is somebody that can assemble a team around them that has got the necessary expertise in all areas and that can work together. And also that trust each other. It's implicit. You can't run just according to strict rule books, etc., etc. Of course, you have to keep to the rules, but you need a lot of trust to take the kind of decisions on the fly that executives take. And executives are involved with executive decisions. The other thing is to know where the responsibility of the CEO and his or her executive team begins and ends. And that's the other issue that Dan is going to have to deal with, because there is a history of huge interference in Eskom from outside that has been aided and abetted and sometimes directly executed by people inside government, including very senior people inside government, and then also the additional complication by people senior in the ANC. And there have been very difficult, sometimes many relationships that have been touted for illegal investigation by Parliament in the Eskom inquiry and also by the Zondo Commission. And Dan walks into all of that. We know that all the people fingered or directed for criminal investigation in the Eskom inquiry and Zondo have not been investigated. Very few have been charged. So he's really, when you say it's one of the most difficult jobs in South Africa, it is. And for Dan to succeed, I think right at the start, he has to have conditions for the person that's appointing him. That's the shareholder, and the shareholder representative is Pravin Gordhan. And he's going to have to say to Pravin, look, the shareholder plays a role, the chief executive plays a role, the board plays a role, and the executive team plays a role, and we can't all do the same thing. So he's going to have to say to Pravin, you can't come and interfere inside my team or inside Eskom. You appoint the board sets policy, the board approves the yearly plan, the 5-yearly plan, the strategy put forward by the executives, and then the executives take responsibility, led by the CEO, for implementing that strategy. And this is going to be crucial because it's not just Eskom, it's many SOEs, whether it's SAA, Transnet, Portnet, Prasa, etc. In my opinion, and there's a lot to back this up, a lot of research, and that's my background, one of my principal backgrounds, that blurring the lines between these different roles has been the primary cause of problem with our SOEs. And then once again, blurring the roles between political party and government. So if Dan has people, senior people, in their function as ANC politicians interfering with Eskom, he's lost this fight before he started it. And I want to remind everybody, this time last year, one of the most senior politicians in South Africa, not responsible for Eskom, responsible for minerals and energy, made some damning public accusations about the then CEO. It doesn't matter who it was, none of them have been proved, but it made his job impossible to do. Dan has to make sure that he tells Pravin when he gets appointed, and he gets appointed by the board, by the way, he tells the board, if the government or the ANC come messing around inside my executive team or inside Eskom, I'm out of here. Because if he doesn't do that, they will.
Well, Hilton, thank you for those sentiments. Speaking about interference and also just speaking about, Dan having support from within, given his history, some are questioning who ultimately is going to be his boss. And then upon, accepting the role, if, reports are if reports stand, what should he be addressing as a matter of urgency, given the timing of his appointment and the issues that have come to the fore?
So his boss is his board. His boss isn't the minister or the president. And he reports to the board appoints him. There's been problems with also in the board recently. And just one other thing, we're going to need stability in these various structures. We can't change them every 6 months. No executive can work like that. So he's going to need all of that clarity. And he reports to the board. He's held accountable by the board for the plans that he says to the board he will implement. What should those plans be? Well, the first thing that he has to do is he has to create an environment inside Eskom where Eskom can retain top executives, firstly, but then retain skills across the board. Because, and this must be his number one concern, because remember, it's people that do things, it's people that take decisions, it's people that make machines work or break them, it's people that take procurement decisions, it's people that make sure that supply chain is not corrupt, etc. So he needs highly skilled people that are competent, but that also have integrity. So one, people with integrity and that are competent find it very difficult to work either reporting to or with other people who aren't held to account, aren't competent, and don't have integrity. So his number one job is going to be to stabilize Eskom skills and competencies and relationships of trust inside Eskom. Having done that, he will then have the right people to deal with the various issues. So on the generation side, he'll have a manager, executive director of the generation division who he can trust, who knows about generation, and who can speak to the distribution people, who can speak to the finance people. And he will muster that team so that each one of them does what they are meant to do. And there are many issues that need to be dealt with. I can list them, but number one is financial stability.
Yes.
Number one is HR. How do people do their jobs? Who is doing their jobs? And how they're held to account. So HR and a team that works. Then we get to the technical issues once the people issues are dealt with. The technical issues, there are many, but number one, obviously, the generation fleet has to be maintained. Unfortunately, Eskom can't buy power stations or get new power stations. So he also has to make it clear to his board, for his board to make it clear to the shareholder that Eskom the country needs more power, and that only the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy are empowered by legislation to get that more power. And when we hear that when he hears that Eskom is being blamed for load shedding, and not the fact that we don't have enough power stations, he must stand up and factually put whoever is interfering and saying those things right, with his generation manager next to him. Similarly with the transmission grid, we need to build a lot of transmission lines fast. So similar technical issues, similar governance issues with people doing what they are good at and not interfering with other people and working together.
Well, speaking of which, another issue is the balance sheet, which is a burning issue that obviously comes to the fore. And given what was cited by the previous CEO, do you think that's also going to be factored in? The issue of sabotage and corruption also coming to the fore and to also restore electricity supply security, which is what you alluded to. How would you weigh in on those sentiments also coming through?
Well, so the issues of sabotage and security, remember I said at the beginning, people do stuff. So it is imperative that those people that are under suspicion are investigated for sabotage and corruption. And also, if there are senior people that are involved, remember, it's pointless just cutting off all the little feet. You don't get rid of drugs by getting rid of the drug dealers. You have to go to the source. So he will have to make sure that at his level, at least, there's no corruption in the executive team. And if there are people that have been charged with corruption, that he demands, and this is going to be very difficult because Andre de Ruyter, on his version, said he went to the police, he went to the police minister, he went to the ministers, and they didn't do anything about it. So Dan is going to have to tell his board, if I report, de Ruyter said he reported to his board too, if I come to you and I report that there are corrupt people from other ministries, other government departments interfering in Eskom, and you do nothing about it. Remember, I can't do anything then I can't do my job. Then I'm out of here. He's going to have to draw the line, because if he doesn't, right at the beginning, as I said, that's going to happen. So corruption and sabotage, that's the same thing. People have been involved in that, fingered. There are police investigations. Those must be followed up, and that is urgent. But there are many things. And then you get the balance sheet. So it is so that Eskom cannot even pay the interest due on its debt from its current profits, from its revenues. In other words, what it earns from selling electricity over and above its costs. So he's going to have to contain costs, and that's another area. Remember, when you have people that are employed that can't do their jobs, lack integrity, or are corrupt, they're just using up resources. When that kind of thing gets sorted out, then costs go down and Eskom can start making sufficient money again to pay the interest on its debts. So they're all linked. But once again, he's going to have to make it clear to the shareholder that there's only so much he can do, and he will need support. If Eskom carries on down this, made a huge loss this year, that's going to have to be sorted out. He can't conjure up money from nowhere if the money is already lost.